Hi, I'm Amy Edwards, and welcome to the Edwards Table. This podcast is all about real conversations, the kind that come from life, love, family, friendship, and all the messy, beautiful parts in between. I started this show because I believe in redemption stories and in sitting down together to talk about the things that shape us, heal us, and sometimes just make us laugh. So grab a seat, take a breath, and join me, because there's always room for you here at the Edwards Table. Well, hey everyone, and welcome to the Edwards Table. My name is Amy Edwards, and I am your host here at the Edwards Table podcast. I am beyond excited to have you all here today. Whether you are a listener that's been with us from the very beginning, or you just popped on for the very first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. If you were with me last time, you heard about the fun that I was having at the very beginning of the podcast. I let you in on a little secret. I've got these gorgeous, ginormous, literally, y'all, I'm looking at myself, I'm like, oh, okay. And if you're not watching on YouTube, pop over, you'll get a chuckle. It's like, it looks like I have cotton balls in my ears. These headphones are gigantic. So just really quick, my microphone, when I sat down to record last week's episode, I tried to turn on the receiver, which is what, lets the sound go in and through my recording camera. And lo and behold, it wouldn't turn on. So I spent like an hour on the phone after troubleshooting from the website. I went on the phone with the help desk and they were like, yeah, you're going to have to get those sent in. So long story short, my microphone and, the receiver, not the transmitters, but the receiver is headed across the country to prayerfully get fixed, and will be back with me hopefully soon. I don't have a timeline yet on that, but in the meantime, you'll get to see me with what look like cotton balls in my ears if you're watching. And if you're listening, sound quality might be a little bit different because I don't have the fancy pants microphone situation going. So sincere apologies. Thank you for your patience and your grace. And as luck would have it, last week we were talking about just learning how to trust again after some pretty rotten things have happened in our lives, which I talked about my childhood. This week, we're going to talk about the whole healing situation. So I know if you're like me, we like things quick, fast, and in a hurry. And if you're watching, you can see over my left shoulder, there's the microwave. Fast. Gas range. Fast. Things quick. We like them fast. And once upon a time, I thought that healing was just like this one and done. Like, bada bing. I've gone to therapy once. Boom. Healed. Done. Moving on. And what I have come to realize and accept is the fact that healing is actually a process. And with that process also comes practice. I know, y'all. It's just, I wish I could tell you something else. But lo and behold, that is the case. So just thinking about that today, in terms of my story and being able to kind of speak into that a little bit more, that's kind of where we're going to land today. And if you have been along, you know that this month in February, we're talking about healing and we're talking about trusting, which are two things near and dear to my heart that are very important, especially having survived some traumatic craziness in my life. So glad y'all are here and super excited to have this conversation. So I'm thinking about this today, right? And, I've been thinking about it longer than today. Please know I don't just pop on here and start chatting, but just in thinking about kind of this month and what I'm talking about, my story and all of the things, healing, I think, is something that the word itself, we say a lot, right? But we don't practice it, y'all. We do not practice it. So I'll give you a big fat for instance in my life. So I know I shared, and I always say this, y'all, so I apologize if you have been following along this whole time and listening in, but if you haven't, in season 1, I sit down and I tell my whole story to my daughter, Maddie. She joins me for the whole season, and it's just nice to have someone to sit down next to be able to talk through, because I'm not like a professional podcaster. This is God's called me to do something and I'm being obedient and trying to surrender all. So, but in season 1, I talked about the fact that my mom and then stepfather did not attend my wedding. And there was a lot that went on during that time of them wanting certain things from me and me saying no to. And really the biggest thing was on our wedding day was being asked to apologize for not doing some things that they had wanted me to ahead of the wedding. And I didn't get that message before my wedding. John did, and he and our pastor felt like that wasn't fair to put on my plate. And so my wedding day, albeit was an amazing day, but it was also sprinkled with some disappointment and some sadness because my mom and my stepfather weren't there, and I did walk myself down the aisle, so that was super lonely. But I went to therapy, and my mom and I mended our relationship over time and all of this, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I'm over it. I'm healed, right? Isn't it funny when we think that we are all good to go, and then something in life creeps up and comes in and says, oh, there might have been a little of that situation you haven't completely healed from. So if you've listened in or if you know me, I have had a very wild story. Wild was my favorite word of season 1. So if you don't like that word, sorry. But that is about the blandest, most general word I could come up with to then also put an exclamation mark with. But I'm a survivor of sexual abuse by my father, had rocky, bumpy road with my mom. Just so many things that have gone on in my life, and too many things that I'm not going to get into today, but definitely please go listen to season 1. It's probably about 12 hours. Actually not 12 full, but it's 12 episodes. And like I said, it's kind of walking through the big parts of my story. So back to what I was talking about, in terms of my family all came to my wedding except for my mom and my stepfather. It was a very hard day. Good day to have everybody there except for them, but sad day because they weren't there and they missed out on that. So I thought, no, I'm good. Well, fast forward, and I had a stepbrother at the time who got married. Let's see, I'm going to have to do math. I apologize. Let's see. So that would have been, I guess, about 9 or 10 years later. Okay. Ample time to have healed from said situation. And by that point, I had gone to therapy for a part of time. Like it had been a couple of years maybe of it. But then my stepbrother got engaged, and I started seeing my mom and stepfather doing a lot for them in terms of, attending all of the showers. I was expected to go to those, and whatnot. At that time, Maddie was little, and she was asked to be in the wedding. And this was when we were going through losing everything. So if you haven't listened to our story, sorry. John and I had a company, and we were worth a lot of money, and then we were worth negative many dollars. And so this was kind of in the mix of us going through all of that. And with Maddie being in the wedding, the bride-to-be wanted all the little girls to wear these beautiful gowns from a store called Strasburg's, which if you are from the South, you know who they are, and probably the Northeast too. I think they're pretty popular out that way for little girls, but they make these gorgeous, floor length, handmade. It's just, they're beautiful, beautiful dresses. Now, mind you, I make those too. I know how to make all of those as well. But she had a specific dress she wanted all the girls to wear: shoes, tights, hair pieces, all the things. A lot of money when you don't have any money, right? So we made a way and figured out how to make ends meet. And I did some side hustle jobs, whatever I needed to do, figured out a way to make some money to pay for all of this. And I feel like it was several $100s, or at least a couple hundred, that we were spending on dress, shoes, tights, gifts, all of that. And the more time that went on and the more that we were having to do and be in it, the more I was becoming aware that there was still some spots of my heart that were raw from me not having my mom and stepfather or stepbrother, none of them participating in my wedding showers, in my wedding day, rehearsal dinner, none of that. And so I think the most difficult of all of it was when we went to so we did the wedding. Maddie, of course, looked beautiful. Thankfully, I knew how to alter her dress and didn't have to pay to have that done, because that would have been probably another $200, because it had to be hemmed, and you can't hem it from the bottom. You could take the whole dress apart and hem it from the waistline, which is what I did. And we showed up, went to did the whole pomp and circumstance, did the wedding, did all the things, had the smiles, took the pictures, did all of that. And then we went to the reception, and John and I paid for a good chunk of our wedding, but we also had friends and other family members who were very generous. One family friend where we met at their house, they opened their home and let us have our reception there. Not a dream reception by any stretch of the imagination for me. Like, I had this vision of what I really wanted as a reception. I wanted a party, right? I wanted a dance floor. I wanted a band or a DJ. I just wanted music. I wanted to be able to do that. And John and I didn't get to do that. We didn't have the money to do that. So we had it in someone's home, and it was lovely. Please don't hear me say it wasn't lovely. But if you're a girl and you have been like me and dreamt about your wedding day, your reception is like, it's the party, it's the celebration, it's the time when the ceremony itself is over, and for the first time as husband and wife, you get to do all of these really cool things, like hang out with people who you love and care about and celebrate and have a good time. And so when we came to that, that's when I realized, for me and for John, that we definitely had not healed from some of the hurt of not having that same support and that same experience. So, long story short, in that time of, going to, like I said, all the parties and all of the things, and then going to that reception was where it really just kind of ripped open an old wounded part of my heart. And how it kind of showed up was just John and I both, we both wept. Like, we went, and I think actually I said reception, it was the rehearsal dinner, I'm sorry, but so we get done with the rehearsal dinner, we come out to the car, and both of us just sat in the car and we just wept. Hearing my mom give a toast, it ripped out my heart. And I still have the picture. It's like a little video in my head of that night, and like, it just wrecked me. It wrecked me to not only experience that, but just to see how much it just tore John's heart out. He's very protective of me and exceptionally thoughtful when it comes to my feelings and how I'm doing, because he knows, obviously, I have endured a whole lot along the way. And so for both of us, it was something that we thought we were like over it, if you will. I just did some air quotes. But clearly we had not healed from that. And so it not only, like, that night was hard, but then of course the next day, wedding, reception, the party, all the things, again, not fun, to have to put on the game face, to have to speak kindly and be celebrating when the exact same thing that we should have had and experienced as a family, we didn't. And so it was surprising, I guess, but not, I guess it shouldn't have been shocking, but it was surprising. It was surprising in the moment that it was that emotional and that, like, emotionally charged for both of us. Like, it just took us from 0 to 60, like in a snap when we came out to the car. And what's interesting is that it's not that we hadn't healed, right, from going through such a hard time. And unfortunately, there were other things that happened between myself and my family after our wedding. So this all had happened, and then this situation came, right? And so what I realized then that has helped me over the years is that the healing was not, the healing, all in all, for the most part, was done. But the reality is that my healing did not erase my memory. Like, there is not an eraser that is going to actually go back and erase the fact that my wedding day looked the way that it looked. Can't change it. It is what it is. Rehearsal dinner was amazing. We had a great one. But who should have been seated at that table with us wasn't there. And I can't change that. And I think that when we talk about healing, sometimes we have this expectation that it's an event and it's just a one and done. Like, I've made peace with it, I've moved on from it, and the end. And the older I get and the more life that I've done on this planet, the more I realize is that, yes, I am healed because I'm not acting like a horse's fanny when things like that come up in my life now, right? But that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. And that makes it kind of sticky, if you will. I think the other thing too is that when I think about healing and the effort and the energy and the time that I've put into it on my end, right? The biggest thing that I know to do is literally to just bring it and hand it over to God and say, I cannot change what happened. I can't ask somebody else to do something different. I can't go back and rearrange time and events and things like that. And so, God, I need you to help me. Help me to heal from this. And I think what is so fascinating is that when we talk about healing, it's not something that's linear, right? Like start to finish. Healing is a process. And I think that what it has done for me is it has grown me, if you will, into a woman that is much more self-aware. I know that if I hadn't gone through those things, I wouldn't be as self-aware as I am now, especially as a parent, and maybe just in general, thinking about that, like actions and words, and they have consequences. Also, side note, please hear me say, I am not perfect at this. Like I have said all along, I'll be here probably past everybody listening to this forever and ever. God just telling me he loves me, and I am a work in progress. And I think too, like when I think about God in the mix, right? Like in the healing mix of things, what's so beautiful about him as the word is Abba, which is daddy. I love that. But God is our daddy, right? Like is our father, is that he doesn't require us to heal or trust on a timeline. He doesn't require us to all heal the same way, have the same process, have the same ability to do it or to, whatever. He knows that we are each wired as individuals because he made us to be that way. And what's so beautiful is he readily is available to us however we need him, whatever that looks like. So think about for me, right? And I'll share with you like how he does that with me. So I am someone who, partly because of how I'm wired, but partly because of what my story is, I am someone that needs a sprinkling of information along the way versus a book all at the same time when it comes to things in my life and like big changes, okay? And God is very gracious in my story because that is how he speaks to me if I'm listening. Please hear me say, I'll say it again. That is how God speaks to me if I'm listening. I hear it. If I'm not listening, I don't hear it. But it's not because he's not telling me gently and along the way, heads up, something big is coming. This is something to kind of look at and just know is on the way. And so it's so beautiful to be able to think about how gently he listens, and how open he is to being able to receive us wherever we are in our life. And I think about that because I know right now there are a lot of people who are really trying to figure out this whole being a Christian thing and the world and what the world looks like right now, which is all kinds of ways a mess. But the reality is that the world has always been all kinds of ways of a mess. We have a tendency, it's just like when we lose a loved one, to remember only the good few things about the more recent memories we have of them, but we don't necessarily remember all of the, icky stuff, right? Because that's just not how our minds work. The world has always been a mess since Adam and Eve, y'all. It's always been a mess. It's been broken. You go back to the Old Testament in the book of Genesis, and I will tell you, it will raise your eyebrows to read about some of the crazy shenanigans going on back in the day. That was thousands of years ago, back in the day. Hot Mess Express, they were out there living all kinds of cray-cray. I digress, but actually I don't, because then it looks like what we're living in right now, not that it's normal, but it's also not abnormal. It's very much on par, very much. But the beautiful part is that time and time again throughout the entire Bible is woven with God showing up, with God's presence being there, with him listening so much so, and doing everything to the point of sending his own son in flesh and blood to this earth, who is perfect, which means he's never nor will ever sin. Like he'll never do anything wrong, never has, and came and lived on this earth. And so it's just fascinating and just overwhelming sometimes to sit and think about how generous and how loving and how beautiful our God is to be willing to create the universe, planets we don't even know about, who knows where they are, because he created all of it, the wide expanse of all the things, stars, the water, the wind, the animals, all of us. And yet he with each one of us, you, with me, anybody who wants to talk to him, he'll listen. Who wants to vent to him, he'll receive it. Who wants to just cry because we don't have words, he will absolutely take us in and listen to that as well. And I think what also is remarkable is the fact that he does all of this for us, right? In terms of being available for us to come to at any time, and allows us to work it out with him about what we actually need to then continue the healing journey. So, for instance, for me, I read Dr. Cloud's book, Boundaries, per my therapist's recommendation. And for the first time in my 20s, I understood that the word no was not a cuss word and that I was allowed permission as an adult to say no to my mom and to other adults, that I was allowed to put up healthy boundaries where I could say, I know this is too much for me right now. Let me come back when I'm a little bit rested and know I'm not going to get emotional. Or let me come back when I've had time to kind of think about what I want to say. The other thing I learned is the power in the pause. So my favorite punctuation is a semicolon, because it's alerting you to the fact that I've made a statement, but then I have another statement to make. And it doesn't have to be related completely. It's just two ideas that join, right? So I love the power of that semicolon. The power of the pause. Again, learned as I got older, not to just rush in and emotionally say something because that's how I was feeling in the moment. A lot of times because it was emotional and it was feelings and it wasn't necessarily fact-based. It wasn't, okay, you said these words, therefore I'm angry. It was, your tone of voice really ticked me off and therefore I'm going to explode on you. A little different, y'all, just a little. So I think, too, the other thing I was thinking about in this whole healing journey that I am on, because y'all, it is a journey, remember, it's not an event, is that I have learned, even though I have thought that I've let God into everything, that there are some places where I started realizing I hadn't let him in and help me heal. And part of what I realized, right, when I went to all of the wedding shenanigans and celebrations of my then stepbrother, was making it evident that although I had come a long way in my healing journey, that it still was hurting. It was still tender, and it was still something that I needed a little room to be able to breathe and kind of process through some more stuff before I was ready to actually completely be able to say, yes, I am actually healed from this. And the beautiful thing in that is that God has been very patient, very willing, but then also has introduced me to people in my life that have taught me things about myself because I'm not like them, or about myself because I am just like them. And it has helped me to grow so much. And with growth comes healing, right? So with, I think it was last episode, I talked about kind of like if you have like a gaping wound and kind of the steps to it healing. Well, as it's healing, there's new skin that's growing underneath that scab. And once that skin has grown under there, it's good and healthy, and that scab starts to come off. It's still a little tender, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm not a big fan of having a honking huge scab that's like crusty and hard. It hurts, right? Because it's like drying out and tight and all that. But then also the new skin that is under it usually is like also tender as that scab starts to come off. And so I think about those pictures in my mind, and that's very much the healing process. It takes time. It takes prayer for me. It takes me getting into my Bible. It takes sometimes me going to see a therapist and getting some extra tools that maybe I haven't been taught, or maybe I didn't know about, or maybe I've been using wrong. Like sometimes we got tools in that toolbox and we're using a hammer when we need a screwdriver. And we need somebody to be like, ma'am, we don't use a hammer to drive a screw into a piece of wood. We use a screwdriver. Think about that, y'all. So thinking about God in this process of healing, and my prayer always for you all listening is that you're not going through hard things, but reality is we're all going through hard things at some time in our life. Not to say it's always now or whatnot, but if you are in the process of healing, I think my encouragement is the beautiful way that God is steadfast. He stays with us. He continues to walk alongside of us. He'll sit down with us when we need a break, and he'll push us and say, come on, we need to go again, when we need to be, up and moving forward again. And no matter what we bring to him, he can handle, which I'm not saying is an open-ended invitation to come screaming and yelling and cussing to God, but also there are going to be days where you might be doing that because you're hurting so badly and the pain feels too much and breathing seems hard, much less getting up and moving your body because you're hurting. And he can handle all of it. He does handle all of it. And he loves us through it. And he doesn't judge us for it. He asks us to believe in him. He lets us heal in time. And very much like what I was talking about, having that wound, right? We heal in layers, and it's very much how God is with us. I think along the process of healing from these big gaping wounds that we may have because of things that have gone on in our lives, just like revealing truth with us, I think he also heals us very much similarly in layers instead of in one fell swoop. And I believe the reason why he does that, not always, but I think a lot of times he does do that, is one, if he did it in one fell swoop all the time, we would forget how important he is and how strategic he is in our lives. He literally does it all for us. And it's easy to forget about that when life feels like it's going good and smooth all the time. And when something really hard happens, it just magically, boop, it's all good now. We've moved on. I think sometimes he does allow for us to sit in some of that pain so that we can actually deal with it, that we can be still and we can actually deal with it with him. I don't believe that he likes us to hurt. I don't think that he ever wants us to feel pain. But he also knows that this world is a broken place and we do have choices, all of us. And I think part of that healing journey is we have to make the decision we want to heal. And we're willing to say yes to the healing process. And so that's why I say all of that business about like, it's not an event, it's a process, kind of a thing, because it really and truly it is. It's very much like anything else, right? Like forgiveness. I know we've talked about if you joined before, and it's a process. Saying that you forgive somebody is one thing, but actually enacting the actions of forgiveness is ongoing. And I think it's the reality of pretty much everything we live here on this earth, is that it's a process that we have to accept and have to be willing to let go of what we want to be in control of, which is really hard for me. I like things under control. I feel like I'm in control, albeit in my head I know that I'm not in control. God is in control, but my mind also will lie to me and say, but doesn't that feel good when you're in control? Yes, girl. Well, you think it feels good, but reality is you're not in control of anything because tomorrow could be a big old thunderstorm. So with that, I kind of wanted to leave you with a thought here. So what do you think it would look like if you gave yourself permission to heal slowly? And then my second question to that is this: what if God isn't rushing you? Because if you feel behind, you're probably right on time. Y'all, I just thank you. I thank you for coming and sitting down with me. And I thank you for encouraging me, for following this journey that I started a little over 6 months ago. And coming and joining me every Wednesday for some thoughts. And I just love that y'all are here with me. I love the opportunity to share my story. It truly is one of my favorite things to ever do. And I've made peace with being able to be transparent. And not always is that easy, but it's so worthwhile because I know by sharing my story with you that there are some of you who are not feeling as lonely and you're not feeling as hopeless because there are other people out there that maybe are going through things just like you. And that gives me hope. It gives me encouragement. And I just thank you for that. So I definitely hope you will join me next week. I'm super excited for another sit down with you all as we are on this healing and trust journey for the month of February. Definitely loving ourselves well. I love that. Yay. And definitely want you to come back because we're going to talk about loving ourselves with scars. And your girl here, I got some battle wounds to share. So with that in mind, just remember this, y'all. Healing is not a finish line. It's something that we practice every day. And God is with us in every single step. I love it. Well, I hope you have an amazing day. And always remember, a seat at the Edwards table is waiting for you every single Wednesday. In the meantime, have a great week and we'll see you next time, y'all. Bye.